Captain Lehan pressed his palm against the cold glass of the observation deck, watching another Concordat ship drift past like a silver whale through the black ocean of space. The alien vessel moved without sound, its smooth hull reflecting the distant light of Earth below. 20 years ago, ships like this had arrived as saviors. Now they felt more like prison guards, Captain. Park Mina's voice broke through his thoughts. She stood behind him, holding a data tablet, her uniform crisp and clean like everything else in their sanitized world. The morning reports are ready. He unturned from the window, noting how Mina's eyes never quite met his anymore. None of the younger officers did. They had grown up in this new world of peace, never knowing the weight of a weapon or the burden of making life-and-death decisions. Sometimes he envied them. Most times he pitied them. What did the colonies say? He asked, taking the tablet from her hands. Full compliance across all sectors, Mina replied, reciting the words like a prayer. Mining operations on Kepler 442b are ahead of schedule. Agricultural yields on New Eden exceed projections by 12%. The research station on Titan reports successful completion of their atmospheric studies. He unscrolled through the data, seeing the same perfect numbers he saw every morning. No conflicts, no problems, no surprises. It was all too clean, too perfect. Real life was messy, unpredictable. This felt like watching a play where everyone knew their lines too well. Any word from the Outer Rim settlements? He asked quietly. Mina glanced around the observation deck, checking if anyone else could hear them. The habit had become second. Nature over the years. Nothing official, she whispered. But there are still rumors, the rumors. Stories that drifted through the space lanes like cosmic dust, whispered by cargo pilots and maintenance crews. Tales of ships that appeared on the edge of sensor range before vanishing again. Signals that came from empty space. Supply depots that reported missing equipment with no explanation. Most people called them the ghost fleets, groups of humans, who had refused the Concordat's generous offer 20 years ago and disappeared into the void with whatever ships and weapons they could steal. The official records listed them as terrorists, pirates, or simply dead. But the rumors persisted. Heon remembered those early days when the Concordat ships first appeared in Earth's sky. The world had been tearing itself apart back then. Wars in 3 different continents. Nuclear weapons pointed at major cities. Millions of refugees fleeing from conflicts that seemed to have no end. When the aliens arrived with their message of peace, most of humanity had fallen to their knees in gratitude. The Concordat representatives had been everything humanity had hoped for. They spoke of a galactic civilization that had eliminated war, poverty, and suffering. They offered membership in their grand alliance, but with conditions: complete disarmament, dissolution of all military forces, acceptance of Concordat peacekeepers to maintain order. Most world leaders had signed the treaty within a week, but not everyone had agreed. General Park Seojun had been the most vocal opponent, arguing that peace without the ability to defend oneself was merely slavery waiting to happen. He had taken his followers and vanished into space the night before the treaty was signed. The official story was that their ships had suffered catastrophic failures while attempting to reach the outer planets. No wreckage was ever found. Heian walked to another window, this one facing toward the outer solar system. Somewhere out there, past the asteroid belt and the gas giants, the ghost fleets might still be hiding. Or they might be dead, as the Concordat claimed. Either way, they had made their choice. Do you ever wonder what it was like? Mina asked, moving to stand beside him. Before the peace? Heian studied her reflection in the glass. She had been just a child when the Concordat arrived. Her memories of the old world were fuzzy, filtered through the lens of childhood and 20 years of Concordat education. It was terrible, he said finally, and beautiful, and real. Real. People made choices. That mattered. They could fail. They could succeed. They could fight for what they believed in, even if it meant dying for it. He paused, watching Earth turn slowly below them. Now we're safe, fed, healthy, happy, but we're not really alive. A Concordat patrol ship appeared on the horizon, its scanners sweeping across the human vessels in orbit. The alien crew would be checking manifest records, monitoring communications, ensuring compliance with 1,000 different regulations. They did it with gentle efficiency, always polite, always concerned for human welfare. But they never missed anything. Captain Mina said carefully, "Are you saying you wish the peace had never happened?" Ian looked at her young face, seeing the confusion and fear in her eyes. She had never known a world where humans could make their own mistakes. I'm saying that peace is only valuable if you choose it freely. If someone else imposes it on you, it's not peace, something else entirely. On the surface of Earth below, the cities sparkled like jewels in the sunlight. No more wars. No more suffering. No more freedom. Somewhere in the darkness beyond the solar system, the ghost fleets drifted through the void, carrying the last remnants of humanity's ability to say no. Whether they were heroes or fools, Hien couldn't say. But at least they had made their own choice. Commander Kim Jae pressed his face against the small window of the transport ship, watching the mining operation below like a hawk studying its prey. The red surface of Kepler-4, for it to be stretched endlessly in all directions, dotted with human workers who looked like tiny insects from this height. Their bright yellow suits moved in slow, careful patterns across the alien landscape, always followed by the larger blue shapes of their Concordat supervisors. Beautiful sight, is it not? Administrator Kong Su appeared beside him, his voice carrying the practiced warmth that all Concordat officials used when speaking to humans. Your people work with such dedication. It brings joy to my hearts. Nodded politely, but something felt wrong. The mining equipment looked old, clunky, like machines from decades past. On Earth, he had seen pictures of automated mining systems that could extract 10 times more material with half the effort. Yet here, humans were using tools that belonged in a museum. The production numbers are impressive, Jay said carefully, but I noticed the equipment seems somewhat ... traditional. Kong Su's smile never wavered. We believe in the value of honest work. Your people find meaning in their labor. Modern automation would rob them of that purpose. The words sounded reasonable, but Jay's military training had taught him to notice what people were not saying. He spent the rest of the day touring the facility, asking innocent questions and taking careful notes. By evening, his suspicions had grown into certainty. That night, he requested a private meeting with the colony's chief engineer. Cho Yuna was a small woman with tired eyes and calloused hands. She met him in the equipment storage bay, away from the main corridors, where Concordat monitors might be listening. "You wanted to discuss the mining systems?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Jay nodded. "I've reviewed the technical specifications. These machines are at least 30 years behind current technology. Surely there must be room for improvement?" Yuna glanced around nervously, checking the shadows between the massive storage containers. "We've tried," she said finally. "Every month someone comes up with a better design, more efficient drill, a smarter sorting system, way to process the ore faster. And they get buried in paperwork. The Concordat reviews everything, for safety, for environmental impact, for worker welfare." Her voice grew bitter. "The reviews take months, sometimes years. By then, the person who suggested the improvement has usually given up or been transferred to another colony." Jay felt a chill run down his spine. Transferred. That's what they call it. Yuna's hands were shaking now. Yuna's Maybay was working on a new extraction method. It would have doubled our output while reducing the danger to workers. He was so excited about it, and one day he questioned why his proposal had been rejected for the 5th time. He wanted to file a formal complaint. What happened to him? Gone? Next morning, his quarters were empty. The Concordat said he had been transferred to a research facility on the other side of the galaxy. A great opportunity, they said. But Bay would never have left without saying goodbye to his team. He was like a father to us. Jay spent the next 3 days conducting what appeared to be routine inspections. He visited the communications center, the medical facility, the residential quarters. In each location, he asked casual questions about missing personnel, about rejected proposals, about the strange way certain topics seemed to be avoided. The pattern that emerged made his blood Run-Cold Engineer Park had disappeared after questioning. The colony's energy rationing system. Dr. Moon had vanished after suggesting improvements to the medical equipment. Technician Rue had been transferred. After pointing out that the Concordat's safety regulations seemed designed to slow down human progress rather than protect human lives. In the communications center, he found records of dozens of similar disappearances. Across other human colonies, the official explanations were always the same. Transfers to better positions, promotions to important projects, voluntary relocations to be closer to family. But the timing was always suspicious, always right after someone had questioned Concordat policies. "They're keeping us weak," Yuna whispered during their final meeting. "Not just our technology, our minds. Anyone who thinks too much, who asks too many questions, who remembers what we used to be capable of, they disappear." Jay stared at the data on his tablet, seeing the truth laid out in cold numbers. Humanity was not being helped. They were being managed, controlled, kept at a level of development that made them useful but not dangerous. "How many people know about this?" he asked. "A few? We don't talk about it openly. Too risky. But some of us remember what we were before the peace. We remember when humans could build anything, go anywhere, dream of impossible things." She looked out the window at the alien stars. "Now we're just ... livestock." The word hit him like a physical blow. Livestock kept fed, kept healthy, kept productive, but never allowed to grow beyond their usefulness to their masters. That night, as his transport ship prepared to leave Kepler-4 for B, Jay made a decision that would change everything. He encrypted his findings and sent them through channels that even the Concordat couldn't monitor. Somewhere in the darkness between the stars, the ghost fleets were still listening, and they needed to know that humanity's cage was even more gilded than they had imagined. Captain Lee Hyen's hands trembled. As he guided his ship through the asteroid field, following coordinates that had been hidden in a routine supply manifest, the rocks drifted past his viewport like sleeping giants, each one large enough to crush his vessel if he made a wrong turn. But somewhere in this maze of stone and ice, answers waited. The ship that appeared on his sensors looked like a ghost, made real. Its hull was patched with metal from a dozen different sources, scarred by years of hiding in the void. No registry numbers, no identification codes. According to every official record, it did not exist. "Unknown vessel? This is Captain Lee Hoon of the research ship Harmony." He transmitted on the agreed frequency. "Welcome to the truth, Captain," came the reply. "Prepare for docking." The airlock opened with a hiss, and Admiral Song-Won stepped through like a man walking out of legend. His face was a map of scars, each one telling a story of survival in the darkness between worlds. Behind him came others, men and women who bore the same marks of those who had lived beyond the reach of civilized space. "You look surprised," Song said, studying Hyen's shocked expression. "Did you think we were all dead?" "The report said your ships were destroyed during the evacuation," Hyen replied. "Mechanical failures, navigation errors. The Concordat showed us the wreckage." Song's laugh was bitter as winter wind. "They showed you what they wanted you to see. We've been out here for 20 years, Captain, watching, learning, preparing for the day when the mask finally comes off." They moved to the ship's briefing room, a cramped space filled with jury-rigged equipment and holographic displays that flickered with data from across the galaxy. The walls were covered with star charts, marked with symbols that Hyen didn't recognize. "Tell me what you've seen," Song said, settling into a worn chair. "What made you finally question paradise?" Hyen described Commander Kim Jae's report from the mining colony, the primitive equipment, the missing engineers, the pattern of disappearances that stretched across human space like a web of silence. "They're keeping us weak," Hyen concluded. "But I don't understand why. If they wanted to destroy us, they could have done it 20 years ago." "Because they don't want to destroy us," Song said, activating a holographic display. "They want to use us." The display showed star maps that Hyen had never seen before. Vast regions of space marked with alien symbols, connected by lines that pulsed with different colors. At the center of it all, a massive cluster of red dots moved slowly toward human territory. The Concordat isn't the only power in the galaxy. Song explained, there's another empire out there. They call themselves the Hegemony. For 1,000 years, these two powers have been locked in a cold war, each afraid to make the first move because they're too evenly matched. Lieutenant Nam Gyuan leaned forward, her eyes bright with intelligence. But what if one side had a secret weapon? What if they had armies of soldiers who were expendable, who could be thrown into battle without risking their own people? Truth hit Hyan like a physical blow. Humanity. Every species the Concordat has saved follows the same pattern, Song continued. First, they arrive as peaceful benefactors. They offer technology, medicine, solutions to whatever problems the species faces. In exchange, they ask for complete disarmament. It's temporary, they say. Just until the species is ready to join their peaceful civilization. The holographic display shifted, showing dozens of worlds marked with the same symbols. Then they begin the conditioning process. They keep the species comfortable but dependent. They suppress technological advancement. They remove anyone who questions the system. They breed compliance over generations. And when the time comes, Nam Jiwan added, they have armies of willing soldiers who believe they're fighting for peace and justice. Soldiers who don't even realize they're being used. Hyun stared at the display, seeing the pattern repeated across hundreds of worlds. How many species have they done this to? 47 that we know of, Song replied. Each one thinking they were special, chosen, saved. Each one gradually transformed into weapons for someone else's war. But you escaped. We ran. We hid. We learned to survive in places they couldn't find us. Song's expression darkened. We've been preparing. For this day, the day when the hegemony finally moves and the Concordat shows their true face. The display zoomed in on the red cluster of dots. Those are hegemony fleets. Our scouts have been tracking them for months. They're moving toward human space, and they'll be here in less than 6 months. When they arrive, Nam Gyuan said, the Concordat will declare a state of emergency. They'll mobilize every human colony for the defense of civilization. Fathers will send their sons to die for alien masters. Mothers will sacrifice their daughters for a peace that was never real. Hyun felt sick. And no one will question it because we've been trained to trust them. Exactly. 20 years of conditioning. 20 years of believing that the Concordat knows what's best for us. When the call comes, humanity will march to war singing songs of peace and justice. Song stood, his scarred face grim with determination. Unless we stop them. We spent 20 years building our own ships, developing our own technology, training our own soldiers. I mean, we're not strong enough to fight both empires, but we might be strong enough to break the chains. What do you need from me? Hyun asked. People on the inside. When the time comes, we'll need humans in positions of authority who remember what freedom means. The Concordat thinks they've tamed us, but they're about to learn that some humans still have teeth. The alarm screamed through Luna Station like a dying animal, jerking Captain Lee Hyun from his sleep. He stumbled through the corridors, still pulling on his uniform, as emergency lights painted everything in harsh red shadows. Other officers ran past him, their faces tight with confusion and fear. Captain, Park Mina's voice cut through the chaos as he burst into the command center. You need to see this. The main display showed what every human had dreaded but never expected to see. Massive alien ships hung at the edge of the solar system. Like storm clouds, their hulls bristling with weapons that could crack planets. But these weren't the smooth, elegant vessels of the Concordat. These ships were angular, aggressive, built for war. Hegemony forces, Mina reported, her voice shaking. Long-range sensors count at least 300 vessels. They're demanding complete surrender of all human territories. Before Heian could respond, another alarm joined the first. This one came from the Concordat communication channels, and the message it carried changed everything. Attention, all human citizens, came the voice of High Administrator Veltar, the Concordat official who had governed human space for 20 years. We are under attack by the criminal Hegemony Empire. All able-bodied humans are hereby conscripted into the Concordat Defense Force. Report to your nearest military processing center within 24 hours. Resistance is treason. Heian stared at the screen in horror. The gentle, caring voice that had guided humanity for 2 decades had become cold and commanding. The mask had finally dropped. "Sir," Mina whispered, "they're broadcasting the same message to every human colony. Mining stations, research outposts, farming worlds. Everyone between the ages of 16 and 60 is being called up." Across the galaxy, the reaction was swift and brutal. On New Eden, Concordat peacekeepers began rounding up anyone who hesitated to report for duty. On the industrial world of Kepler 438b, humans who questioned the sudden conscription were shot as examples to others. 20 years of careful conditioning had created a population that would follow orders without question. But not everyone had forgotten what freedom meant. In the asteroid belt, Admiral Song Wan's hidden fleet burst from their hiding places, like wolves emerging from winter caves. Ships that the Concordat had never known existed powered up weapons that human engineers had built in secret. The ghost fleets were real, and they were ready for war. "All resistance cells," this is Admiral Song. His voice crackled across hidden communication channels. "The day we've prepared for has come. Execute Operation Breakout." On Kepler 442b, engineer Cho Yuna threw off her disguise as a simple worker. For months, she had been organizing the mining crews, preparing them for this moment. Now she stood in the colony's main square, her voice carrying across the settlement. "They promised us peace," she shouted to the gathered crowd. "But they lied. They want to use us as soldiers in their war. They want to send our children to die for their empire." The Concordat supervisor moved to stop her, but the human workers surged forward. Mining equipment became weapons, or haulers became barricades. In minutes, the colony was free. Similar scenes played out across human space. On Earth, Commander Kim Jae used his security clearance to seize control of the orbital defense platforms. The massive weapons that were supposed to protect humanity from outside threats now turned on their Concordat overseers. "This is Commander Kim Jae of the Luna Defense Grid." He broadcast to the planet below. "I hereby declare Earth's independence from the Concordat Protectorate. Any alien vessel attempting to enforce conscription orders will be destroyed." The rebellion spread faster than anyone had expected. Humans who had never questioned their peaceful existence suddenly remembered what their ancestors had been capable of. Factory workers sabotaged production lines. Farmers destroyed food shipments meant for Concordat forces. Even children began refusing to attend schools that taught alien propaganda. But the most shocking development came from an unexpected source. On the trading world of Kepler 45b, a group of Velkari merchants watched the human uprising with growing amazement. The Velkari had been part of the Concordat for 3 centuries, their warlike nature supposedly tamed by alien wisdom. Now they saw something they had forgotten existed. "Look at them," whispered Merchant Captain Dexalon to his crew. "They choose to fight rather than submit. When did we stop being capable of such courage?" The question spread through the Velkari fleet like wildfire. Within hours, they too had declared independence from the Concordat. Their example inspired others. The aquatic Mortish of Kepler 186f remembered their ancient warrior traditions. The insectoid Clictor of Wolf 359 began questioning why they had given up their hive-based military structures. Engineer Cho Yuna's words broadcast across the galaxy became a rallying cry for dozens of species. "They kept us weak by keeping us separate. But they forgot that intelligent beings share more than just space. We share dreams of freedom." The Concordat, faced with simultaneous rebellions across half their territory, made a fatal mistake. They turned to their most trusted servants, the peacekeepers who had maintained order for generations. But many of these alien soldiers had been watching the humans with growing respect. Some began laying down their weapons rather than fire on civilians who only wanted to be free. In the space of a single day, the Concordat's carefully constructed empire began to crumble. The humans had done something unprecedented in galactic history. They had chosen freedom over safety, uncertainty over comfort. The right to fail over the guarantee of mediocrity, and their choice had reminded the galaxy what courage looked like. The space between Earth and Mars had never seen anything like it. 3 massive fleets hung in the void like predators circling their prey, each one representing a different vision of the galaxy's future. The Concordat fleet gleamed silver in the distant sunlight, their ships elegant and peaceful-looking despite the weapons hidden beneath their hulls. The hegemony vessels were dark and angular, built for war and conquest. And between them, smaller but determined, floated the human resistance fleet. Admiral Song Huan stood on the bridge of the battleship Indomitable, watching the tactical displays with eyes that had seen 20 years of hiding in the darkness. Around him, officers who had once been scattered across the galaxy now worked together with perfect coordination. Captain Lee Hyon managed the defensive formations while Commander Kim Jae coordinated strike teams. These were humans who had remembered what their species was capable of when they fought for something that mattered. "Both fleets are hailing us," reported Lieutenant Nam Jiwon from the communications station. "They're demanding we choose a side." Song smiled grimly. Open channels to both fleets. The main screen split, showing the faces of the 2 alien commanders. High Admiral Veltar of the Concordat looked disappointed, like a parent whose child had misbehaved. War Master Grixthak of the Hegemony simply looked hungry for battle. "Humans," Veltar began, his voice carrying the same gentle authority it had held for 20 years. "You have been deceived by criminals and terrorists. Return to your designated positions, and we will show mercy for your rebellion." Grixthak's response was more direct. "Join us, and you will taste victory. Refuse, and you will taste death. Choose quickly." Song stepped forward, his scarred face hard as stone. "You both promised us peace in your own ways. The Concordat promised us safety if we gave up our freedom. The Hegemony promises us glory if we serve your empire. But we've learned something important over the past 20 years. He paused, letting his words sink in. Peace without freedom is just slavery with better food. And glory without choice is just another form of chains. The alien commanders began to respond, but Song cut them off. "We choose neither of your promises. We choose to be free." The battle that followed was unlike anything in recorded galactic history. The Concordat and Hegemony fleets, built for massive confrontations between equals, found themselves facing an enemy that refused to fight by their rules. Human ships, smaller and faster than their alien counterparts, darted between the massive vessels like minnows attacking whales. "Target their weapon systems, not their engines," Song commanded. "We're not here to destroy them. We're here to prove they can't destroy us." The human tactics were ancient by galactic standards, but devastating in their effectiveness. Coordinated strikes hit multiple targets simultaneously. Ships would appear from behind asteroids, launch their attacks, and vanish before the enemy could respond. When cornered, human crews would ram their vessels into enemy ships rather than surrender. Captain Lee Han led a squadron of fighters through the gap between 2 Concordat cruisers. His voice calm despite the chaos around him. "Remember, we're not just fighting for Earth. We're fighting for the right of every species to choose their own path." The battle raged for hours, but something unexpected began to happen. Other ships appeared on the edge of the battle zone. Valkyrie merchant vessels, their hulls hastily fitted with weapons. Mordish waterships, their crews singing ancient war songs. Clickter hive ships, their insectoid crews working with perfect coordination. Admiral Nam Ji-won reported, her voice filled with wonder. "We're receiving messages from across the galaxy. The Talmar have declared independence from the Hegemony. The Silthic are in open revolt against their Concordat governors. It's spreading everywhere." Song watched the tactical display as more and more species joined the fight. The human example had done something unprecedented. It had reminded the galaxy what courage looked like. Species that had been conquered or convinced to submit were remembering that they had once been free. The tide of battle turned when a group of Concordat peacekeepers, inspired by the human example, turned their weapons on their own command ship. The elegant vessel, symbol of 20 years of gentle tyranny, broke apart in a brilliant explosion that lit up the void. "This is War Master Grixthak," came a transmission from the Hegemony flagship. "We withdraw." This battle serves no purpose if there are no slaves to be won. High Admiral Veltar of the Concordat fleet, came another message. We must return to our worlds to restore order.
Oh.
This engagement is concluded. As the alien fleets limped away, their dreams of easy conquest shattered. Song found himself surrounded by ships from dozens of different species. All of them had one thing in common. They had chosen freedom over safety, uncertainty over comfort. Standing before the assembled fleet, Song's voice carried across the communication channels to every ship, every world, every species that had joined the fight. Today we learned something important, he said. They promised us peace, but we discovered something better. We discovered that the right to choose your own path is worth any price. The right to fail is worth any risk. The right to be free is worth any sacrifice. The stars seemed to shine brighter as his words spread across the galaxy. That is the human promise, that we will give you peace, but that we will give you the strength to choose your own destiny. And we will stand with anyone who makes that choice, no matter how difficult it becomes. Behind him, Earth turned slowly in its orbit, no longer a protected world, but a free one. Humanity had found its place in the galaxy, not as subjects or servants, but as guardians of liberty itself.